Hello everyone, welcome to the Jenkins Infrastructure Weekly Team Meeting. Today we are the 11 March 2025. Around the virtual table we have myself, Damien Duportal, Charity, Mark Waite, Stéphane Merle, Bruno Verharten, and we have a special guest today, Chris Stern. Welcome, Chris. Okay, Chris Stern. Good, so just with the announcement, let's get started with Chris. So you will be available. So yes, let's start. The mic is yours.
Um, I guess like we ran into some problem with the CI.Jenkins.io API, which is because I think I suspect some of the like GSOC candidates has been trying to scrape it, and we would like to know like if we want to access it, what's the best time and what's the best way and how should we do it?
Might be a GSOC student. So right now I haven't seen hard proof or no one confirmed it was one of the GSOC students. It's just that I made the correlation because there is a project and that the requests that were and continue hammering, but it's just we reduce the amount. CI Jenkins IO looks generated by an LLM because it's a bunch of things that looks right and a lot of things that are absolutely not right, like inverting patterns at the end of the URL, trying word strings. It's like a script kiddies, but way more powerful and way more efficient in the amount of requests.
Okay.
So I haven't opened the issue yet. That will be worth an issue. First thing, as Daniel Beck noted, the API of CI Jenkins IO is not available publicly. It's not exposed and it should not. I totally forgot about this, but he pointed a documentation page, which is
Right.
a
Me too. So sorry, Chris. I'm the one who guided Chris towards the REST API. So I had completely forgotten that, in fact, it's intentionally blocked and has been that way for years, right?
which means I also need to update the discussion thread to point to Daniel. My initial message was saying we see word API requests and there is confusion. I used API as in any endpoint of CI Jenkins IO, while API is also specifically the Jenkins API that provides JSON or Python or XML outputs on specific objects. So the API we are mentioning here, which is blocked, is the second one. The rationale behind, just for history, is because CI Jenkins IO is a public web service. And in the past, just 1 or 2 person with the right shell script was able to put CI Jenkins IO down. You can generate a DDoS in 3 lines of shell with one curl. The API on Jenkins is notoriously bad at handling huge level of requests. It doesn't provide caching and it generates a lot of threads. So on an instance like CI Jenkins IO, if we open the API, we basically doom the service. We cannot use it. So the quick first answer is a negative one, Chris. We cannot allow any LLM or script to scrap CI Jenkins IO. That's technically not possible, otherwise the service is doomed to not being able to run. That will generate too much.
Okay.
However, depending on the next steps, it's absolutely possible for the team to provide an export of partial data. By partial, I mean we remove the credential and sensitive data, and we can export the content of the jobs directory, which has the build logs, the test results, no, not the binary archive, not the credential, not the config. The idea is that I guess if and that's a generic we want to train an LLM system, that will be on that data. The thing is, we cannot afford opening publicly because we don't have enough credits, or otherwise we would need a terrible big instance that costs a lot. And we are not able to handle that use case, especially with the API endpoint being dead. Is it clear and does it make sense for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes, Mark?
So what I think you were describing sounds sort of like a backup or an export of a subset of the data that then would be publicly available for anyone who wants to use it as a training data source. That's the concept? And a sanitized export, so
Yes,
it's
that's the thing that require additional work to be sure that it's sanitized. I don't think it should be a lot of work because I'm not expecting sensitive data in that job thing, since all the repository are public and credentials are not expected to be on the output.
well, and we treat ci.jenkins.io as mostly contaminated, right? We
Exactly.
act like it is unsafe and don't allow Jenkins file execution for anyone but code owners, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So if we've got credentials in there, inadvertently, we already are treating them as though they had been exposed or had been at risk. So when we use them, we rotate frequently, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay.
Would that help for your project, Chris?
Yep, that would.
We will have to limit the amount of CPU and RAM that this controller may be able to use.
Well, I
Oh,
think what Damien was suggesting was a static backup, a static
yes.
export of a point in time, not anything that we would say, oh, let's do it every so often. Maybe
No,
we do
that's
it
not that. I think that the LLM will try to learn by
Oh,
pointing and creating URL and pushing
right.
them.
we are
So
not, the infrastructure is not able to provide a controller running with that data to be scrolled by an LLM system.
Right.
okay,
They'll have to they'll have
just
to
We
the
don't have,
data.
yeah.
right.
The reminder, the LLM system have a really, really high cost. So if we run it, that means we must be sure that it has a really, really high value. Otherwise, we are wasting money. I don't say it's not valuable. I just say the balance between the value we can get compared to the cost of infrastructure on server side and modeling side is really, really is not an advantage. In the context of the GSOC project, that's a constraint that comes from Google, if I understand correctly, that wants to have subject related to AI LLM, which may not make sense. I don't know. I'm not a researcher. However, I think if you need credits or infrastructure resource here, either we can provide something that doesn't cost a lot, but that will waste the LLM time. I mean, one CPU, 1 GB for a Jenkins controller will be absolutely hammered by any LLM. Just for the sake of the magnitude, the system we saw was making 10 to 50 more requests per second than humans. So yes, it's efficient on sending requests, but it's also efficient on wasting our credits. That's why we blocked immediately because that was blocking everything else. That's why the proposal trying to provide data. Second, Mark, I was thinking about a daily or maybe a weekly export because the data on CI Jenkins IO is cleaned up regularly every the 5 or 7 builds for each line, which means the LLM won't be able to train correctly if it only has partial data on a point on time. I think it's also the person who will train the LLM who will have the responsibility of regularly retrieving new data and train it on a new diff of data. But that's not a problem for the impact on CI Jenkins IO because we can take snapshot and export to S3. That doesn't add any impact on the running controller because snapshot is always done on a copy of the data. It's always offline. So if we provide this on a S3 bucket for now, and we will do the same on Azure, that also ensure that we have a backup, always useful, like when we upgrade Datadog plugin. So doing that is not only for the GSOC project, but also a good thing for us. So in any case, it's useful. and it doesn't pose any risk to CI Jenkins IO, and that could be done weekly or daily as soon as we store on something almost empty.
Great.
Again, same question. Given this precision, Chris, do you think it still apply to the GSOC project goal and the thing you had in mind?
I think it does. Yeah, it does more than we wanted.
So everyone benefits from that proposal. We benefit from a regular backup that we can reuse in case of crash. And the students and anyone who want to train on the data can benefit and explore that data. It's up to them to load that data on the controller or do something else. What do you think about daily export? Okay. Are there other questions on that topic?
So the daily export, that part I think I understand. The sanitization would, I assume, have to be some sort of a separate sanitization and packaging would have to be some sort of a separate step. This because the snapshot is just a file system snapshot, isn't it?
Yes, or rsync with exclude.
Okay, all right.
The idea is that the snapshot is a way to have a copy of the data in which we can do something. So the sanitization process could be we have a pod that starts, gets the snapshot as a persistent volume, and rsync or copy to S3 based on the pattern and stop it. And it runs once a day or cron or anything. It's
Thank you.
just a technique to make the data processing offline so we don't put the existing data in danger. One last thing, Daniel made an interesting proposal to help us protect CI Jenkins IO against, let's say, non-legitimate usages. I think his proposal is interesting and worth discussing. The proposal is, why don't we block every AWS, Azure, Alibaba, and Google public block IP? We can retrieve this one. So by default, if you emit a request from a virtual machine on one of these cloud provider, you cannot reach CI Jenkins IO. We, of course, allow explicitly our own IP because we don't want our automation to die. Or today, it's only HTTPS, which is open publicly on CI Jenkins IO, and we expect humans from their home with the ISP public IP to reach CI Jenkins IO and HTTP. So by blocking this, we drastically decrease, it's not perfect, it's not absolute, but we drastically decrease the cases of people running curls or script or LLM. Because here, thanks to Chris, we know it's most probably one of our students. But we don't want an anonymous person that we don't know trying to deter the system. Yes, Mark?
It sounds interesting, but wouldn't that, for instance, then also block out any user of a Git pod or that kind of a cloud-hosted workspace from contributing, right? It would, I think we may have to consider it, but it would block out those users who are getting a cloud-hosted resource as their development machine.
Why
Or
would it block them? Because Gitpod should only interact with Git, right? And the
well,
Jenkins API is down, so we cannot have a plugin on VS Code or any that connect to CI.
well, when I run an automated test, if that automated test makes the flawed decision, which many of my automated tests do, of asking questions of github.com, for instance, it would not work for me. And I fear there may be cases where we've got things that make requests of ci.jenkins.io, and they'll be, but I guess maybe the answer is that's a flawed test and we
Yeah,
shouldn't.
my first answer is
Uh-huh.
that it's not expected, and that would be a good thing that these cases are blocked because you're not expected to go on CI Jenkins IO through a Gitpod instance or any kind of
Right.
tool. You have a web browser to reach Gitpod, or you have a web browser on your VS Code or IntelliJ, so you should be able to exit from here. Maybe I don't. Again, it's not absolute. Maybe we could see things and reconsider. But that will be interesting to see the blockers and the usages here, because since as we said, API is blocked, so I don't expect any call to be made except eventually a curl to download a file, but in that case, you can do it manually. And also, Stefan underlined that maybe a legitimate use case will be people running a VPN on this cloud provider so they can access CI Jenkins IO from a private network in which they are. Which again is, I understand, but if you are either they are contributing for a plugin inside the organization, so their network should allow access in HTTP only to CI Jenkins IO. Otherwise, I mean, I don't see the point of contributing a plugin. And they can run the VPN on their own with a Raspberry Pi or any NAS or any system.
Yeah.
So for me, that's an edge case. I don't say it's not annoying, and I'm interested to see how many contributors we have. If we have contributors, we can start by allowing their IP like we do with our system. That's a possibility. If it's I mean, we don't have a lot of contributors, so the amount of work is that, okay, open an help desk, give us your public IP, and let's get done with it. Because that's a cloud static IP, so that doesn't change often like an ISP IP. So that's more a message for Chris, Mark, and Bruno, that if we apply this change and you see contributors blocked in legitimate usage, meaning the human watching pages, eventually doing one curl from time to time, that's all, then that's okay to add them on the allow list. The reason is because when we moved to AWS, not only we saw these LLM word requests, but also we can't keep having requests to slash polling endpoints. I don't know if it's the LLM system, if it's a script, if it's someone, but what we discovered that's interesting with Stefan, the request goes through Apache to Jenkins. Jenkins answers, you don't have the permission because you are the anonymous user. But still on the log, we see a thread that checked the configuration of the polling and had to read the build XML and recursively a few builds XML and going back. Individually, that's not a lot, but when the requests come to hundreds of jobs during a bomb build, it starts to clearly have a visible impact on the resources, on the JVM threads, on the garbage collector, on the resources. So again, if these requests never reach even the virtual machine, that's more resources not having to spend on 403 requests. So the proposal of Daniel makes sense. I think the whole subject is worth an issue. So at least it's written somewhere. And I propose we do some brownouts on CI Jenkins IO, such as, let's say, we had the public blocks for 24 hours, then 1 week, and then we see if we have people complaining. What do you think?
I like that particularly because a brownout of that type is quite easy to implement, right? I mean, we could even do a 1 hour brownout and very easily see, hey, did we get complaints? All right, no, let's boost it to 8. All right, now let's boost it to 24. Yeah, I hadn't even thought, but this is a relatively straightforward configuration change to block the IP addresses.
Good protection from unlegitimate use cases. Need an issue and a brownout setup. Anything else on that particular topic? Cool. So, Chris, do you have deadlines about the availability of the data?
I think so. It would be good to have it before the GSOC contributed application period closes. So how about let's say the last week of March?
Last week of March? Okay.
Yeah.
Ideally before as soon as possible, I understand, but yes, that gives us a timeline to prioritize the tasks.
Yep.
Is that the end of the GSOC project proposal window? Is that correct?
The end is like in April, but I would like get to be before then. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, beginning of April.
cool. Okay. Anything else on that topic?
I'm sorry, but the last week of March is not last week, next week, but the week after that.
Mhm.
It's
So
very
In 2 weeks.
before the last week of March means next week.
right.
Yep.
Yes, which is a complication here, right? But it if
Depends.
we probably if we can't do it in very short time, we likely can't do it, right? We'll discover some reason that it's not the right thing to do at all.
Question to Chris then. If you have a one-time export before as soon as possible, like in 1 or 2 days, or let's say this week we provide you an initial and we put in place the daily export later. Would that be okay given the timelines and the goals here?
Yes, that would do.
At least a one-time export initially. Cool. So that could be an intermediate. We provide, that's easy to get the thing manually one time. We do the snapshots. We spin up a virtual machine for 1 hour. We do the sanitization manually. We do an AWS S3, and we are done at least to unblock Chris and the GSOC mantis. And then we put in place the daily backup later by automating the same process.
Okay.
Does it answer your concern, Mark and Stefan?
It addresses mine, yes.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Keep it light, and even if we had to do it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Before the end of April, the application period will have ended, right, Chris and Bruno? I think it's not, we don't go all the way into May, so we're less than 6 weeks before the application period is done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So if we're weekly and did it 6 times, that still may be cheaper than, and if that's cheaper than automating it, no problem.
Cool. So I hope it's an intermediate that will content everyone. Let's see. Thanks, Chris, for reacting so quickly this weekend. That helped a lot. And yeah, I propose we proceed forward with the 2 subtasks.
Okay.
Okay. Unless you have something else you want to discuss, Chris, you are welcome to stay, continue the meeting, or to go if you have something else. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
that
sleep.
that's okay. Yeah, sleeping might be a good thing.
I'll stay a bit. Yeah.
No problem. I tend to tell the same thing to Mark every early morning for him, or middle of day for us in the. Okay, so let's continue with the rest of the notes. Weekly releases. So last week the 2.500 yes, cannot release server-side error. Oh no, wait, that's a bad joke. Was released as a security release, which is even funnier. Wednesday, because it's Wednesday for security advisory. No issues. I haven't seen any problem on the release process itself. We had question and thing to check with the GenSec team, Stefan, they put on the private channel about, they had question about the process for building the images, the Docker images. For the rest, everything went smooth. They had instruction for the new CI Jenkins IO, and thanks to your work, Stefan, everything was updated in the hour after the release, so really good job. That also implies the LTS releases. And today, 2.501 started in time. It should be available in 1 or 2 hours. Unless we have build issue, test issue, infrastructure issue, of course. But that doesn't happen often, right? That's all for me on the announcements. Do you have other announcements, folks? Okay. So quick look at the upcoming calendar. Oh yeah, just by the way, thanks Chris for managing with the GenSec team the whole security advisory, because having 3 lines released at the same time, it's quite some work. So thanks for the help here. Next week, Tuesday 18, next infrastructure team meeting, and as every week, a new version 2.502. That's an automated version. I have no idea when is the next LTS plan. I guess it's a .3 version.
It is. I think it's on the 19th for the release candidate, and maybe on the 2nd or 3rd of April for the release, the official release.
And Bruno is the release lead.
I'm afraid I am.
And Chris has volunteered to mentor, and I'm happy to help with the mentoring as well. If Chris,
Thank you, folks. That will be needed.
Good. So
you don't need to put me there at all. Chris is the one who offered to mentor. I'm happy to help if needed, but Chris is certainly very, very skilled at release lead.
Cool. So that will be Wednesday, April 2.
Right.
Cool. So the baseline selection for the next LTS line happen in 8 days, to 19. And that's all. Next security release, we don't have any planned or officially publicly announced. On the area of credential expiration, so I was late for preparing the notes today, so I missed that part. We have a bunch of tokens and pull request open, Stefan, that we will need to treat. I will try to open the issue. We have in Terraform states the private one. I think I will take care of this because it will require a Terraform upgrade. And I will, if it's okay for you, ask you to renew the others. So Infra CI, Azure storage credential, etc.
As a small reminder, I will be off for the 3 next day.
Yep. So that means I will take care of renewing credential that will expire until Monday included. And if it expires later, that will be for you. Good for you?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So let me add the notes. Damien to create issue and fill notes. So if you see for everyone, agent not spinning up on Infra CI, so no deploy preview on the website, or the website not being deployed, it's because Stefan or Hyde missed credential renewal. That happens. That shouldn't, but if you see this, it's not you the problem, it's us. Don't hesitate to open an help desk like you used to do. We don't have next major event in which one of the team member will be present because so-called California was last week. Congrats, Mark, on your talk, by the way. Anything else on calendar announcements? Nope. Okay, cool. So let's have a quick look at the budget. As your CDF paid account is in line, everything is going well. We have a forecast at 4.4K data forecast. Usually it's a bit less, but we are under the line. As a reminder, our fresh we said 5K per month, and our real life target is 4.5 per month. We are just a bit under, and that's okay. So nothing specific here unless you have questions.
So I was impressed at 3.9 last month. Anything exceptional that caused that, or I'm just
That's
not
the
that it matters.
wonderful,
28
the
days.
wonderful month of February. That's exceptional.
So we
We
just need
did a
to have
good
every
job.
month have 28 days. I see. Thank you. Okay, got it. The difference between 28 and 31 actually
Yeah.
matters, is what you're saying. Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
because if you do linear extrapolation, you are close to
Right.
4.3. So yeah,
Right. That's what I
we
get
are
for thinking that months are a constant. They are not.
although I can say it, February is a good way to have better metric results to show to your manager than the rest of the year. Just saying.
Yeah, but be careful because March is 31
Yeah,
day.
March can be the boomerang effect because in that case your metrics are way worse. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks very much.
I'm not saying that because you are my manager, Mark, of course.
No, that
Not
has
at all.
nothing to do with your comment. That's of course. I'm totally right.
On the Azure sponsorship credits, we have consumed almost 1.7K this month. The forecast is at 4.5K. It's a linear forecast. It was clearly below the previous month. So that shows we are not using this like we use. And yeah, clearly CI Jenkins IO was causing around 10K per month. That's the same on AWS. So we cannot say AWS or Azure is cheaper compared. That's the same amount. We have finished a lot of cleanup in the past 2 days with Stefan. It's too soon to see the effects. We will show the effect next week. We need at least 3 full days that are not Sundays in order to have the aggregation of costs. But clearly that should remove at least 1 to 2K per month because we destroyed a full cluster with 5 virtual machines running all the time and a bunch of subnets gateway, and we still have some other cleanups to finish. But that means that money, we have 45K credits valid until end of May. If we can at least extend the credits dates with Microsoft, that will be really good, because when we will run out of credit on AWS, we will go back to Azure using these credits. So that's at least 4 months of running CI Jenkins IO.
So the expiration date on Microsoft is still 31 May, even though the funds amount is much larger. So we need to ask them to move the expire date. Great.
Exactly.
I will let me take the action item on that one because we certainly want to tell them thank you. We want to express our gratitude to them for granting that and tell them that, hey, we would really love to continue using it. That is almost a year's worth of donation to us, right? Oh no, yes, at forecast at 4.5K, we could go 10 months on that $45,000 remaining.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Yep.
oh, that's very good.
Right now, it's used for agents for trusted CI, third CI, Infra CI, so the free private controllers.
Okay.
It's also used for release. So all the private controllers are running their agents here. And it's used by half of the services running the update center.
Great. Okay. So there is those resources, there's no compelling motivation for us to move those off so long as we have funds.
Exactly.
Excellent. All right. So I will give myself an action item to ask them if they could please extend the expiration date.
And if they don't mind adding credits for the end of year, we don't mind, because if we run out of credits in AWS in 5 months, we will need to find a new place for CI Jenkins IO.
Right. And that for me is a second conversation. That's a later conversation. We have those
We are really
conversations.
happy if they want to give us money, you know.
Always.
No problem.
Absolutely. Yes. No question.
On Digital Ocean, we keep being steady. We still have around 14K credits. On the upcoming quarter, we will have to move 2 to 3 virtual machines from CloudBees Amazon account to Digital Ocean. So that will increase a bit the consumption, but I mean, we consume 500 bucks per month, so we will have more or less the same cost. So we will be under less 1K. That means in the worst scenario, 1K per month consumed. We still have 14 months in front of us for Digital Ocean. Credits are until January. So for 2025, we are good on Digital Ocean. CloudBees, thanks Stefan, is on track. Still the same order of magnitudes, and these are the virtual machine I mentioned. And we clearly see a big cost increase on the sponsored account Amazon because we moved CI Jenkins IO, of course. So we should reach the 10.8K for running the whole CI Jenkins IO.
And the
But
bones.
only that 11K, not 13 or 15K. So
yeah,
even with, all right, now Bruno, sorry to put you on the spot here. Even with 20 runs attempting to release the bomb, still we haven't boosted ourselves to 13 or 14K dollars. So
yes,
I'm actually quite impressed because I would have expected our March spend to be far beyond that just because of how many times we ran that thing, right? It was
that's the thing with cloud provider telling you our machines are cheap. mainly using spot instances. It's
Got it.
because they tend to provide something very noisy and the quality is not the same between two machines. That's
Right.
why you have so much failure on the bomb build. It's directly related to the fact that AWS is a poor cloud provider in terms of machine capacity when you do builds, unless you pay them high-end
Top dollar. Yeah.
Right.
machines
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
for 3 years.
choice to use spot instances has consequences, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
You get
that's
what you
Cheap,
pay for.
cheap,
exactly. I like
exactly.
Bruno. You get what you pay for, and I am fine with that because we need to be resilient to failure. So this I have no problem with that. That makes
I mean,
sense.
we could allocate on-demand instance reserved for us. They have big metal machines that I've used at CloudBase in the past. Do you remember, Mark, that machine? And running the bomb on this machine will be really efficient. However, the cost will not be efficient at all,
Right.
clearly. We are speaking about a machine that costs 14K per month, just the machine, not the storage.
Yeah. So yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
same. I haven't retrieved the JFrog Artifactory
Oh,
twice.
and
I'm
and
still
I had
recovering.
actually
But you
so
have some, yeah.
I had retrieved it, and
Cool,
as of yesterday as of late Sunday, we were inbounds on storage. So we
cool.
had a boost last week over up to about 6 terabytes, and Darren successfully brought us back to where below 4 terabytes and below where we were before the boost. So he found some additional things that needed to be removed. He removed them. And so we are now under 4. Now, I don't have a more recent report than that, but we have now less than 4, and it's in the help desk ticket. So it's
Less than
correctly,
4,
yeah,
yes.
and it's correctly documented. So I very much appreciate Jonathan sending that picture. It makes it much more comfortable for me knowing that we're under budget again. Now our bandwidth use is still high, and I've got to have a discussion with Melissa about that. Right? It's not it's not nearly as high as it was,
Mhm.
but it's still above the 10 terabytes per month threshold that they had suggested as our threshold.
Yep.
Right.
I'm not sure there is an easy solution for this one except doing a smart solution like we did for the update center.
Right. Finding ways to, yeah, yeah, onward. Thank you, Damien.
Okay. Now on the task done. So we had a lot of work. We're still under a lot of pressure because I had. So thanks, Stefan, for taking care of everything when I was off 2 weeks ago. Last week was basically a recovering process for me. So I hope next week I will be able to triage the issue. To be quite honest, I haven't done the usual categorization of the done issues that usually are support issues, keep the platform up-to-date issues, and top-level topics, because I spend my time trying to learn about the new feature of GitHub issue. I saw that someone named Mark Waits tried the same on the last issue opened, unless it was automatic. But the issue type of your last issue is task, and issue type is different than label. That's really useful because you can, I don't know how much personalization we could do, but that with that new endpoint on GitHub API, that could help us to detect automatic the epic topic and remove them out of the milestone. And that will also allow us to start gathering metrics about the amount of issue. That could prove a point when we start to do something for the platform that doesn't directly benefit the end user, but that could benefit the team by decreasing the amount of support issue of a specific kind, for instance. I have account Jenkins IO in mind for as an example. So I experimented with this one and I have ideas, but I need to spend a bit more time, which alas CI Jenkins IO and Amazon prevented me to do. Hopefully Stefan and Jay worked very well and did a lot of work, so I'm really happy with this. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, so for me, the place where it presented itself was at the very bottom of the page, creating a new issue. There's a bar where it says, what type of thing is this? And that was Oh, okay. Well, I'll just fill it in. I didn't do anything particularly special. I could classify it later, but while doing new issue, it has this thing right at the bottom that says, which kind of thing is this? So just pick the topmost one, create new issue.
Mhm.
And now
Okay.
scroll to the bottom, and what you'll see is this bar.
Oh,
And
yep,
that was the place. So, okay, I could do it right in context of when I'm creating the issue instead of having to classify it separately later.
yep. The question is, can we personalize this? But at least
And
task, task and being an actionable item, and bug could be absolutely feature something going wrong and feature a new epic. I mean, that I don't mind.
yeah, and as far as I know, we can't customize it. This is specifically part of their
Okay,
product features, and it's only those three as far as I know.
okay,
But
interesting.
haven't checked. That's
Okay.
just my perception.
I'm gonna check their documentation on this and the epic because we also have the epic that allows adding sub issue. If you take any issue, you now can create directly a sub issue or add an existing one. That's what I use to try to gather topics under the same umbrella. So that means either with a label or if we can know if if an issue is a parent, child, or subchild, that could be easy for us to treat and generate nodes or gather metrics. Anyway, back on the notes. So we were able, this milestone, to finish the following tasks. There was a request for deleting an account. So as usual, as a reminder, it's legitimate. But one, we have to be careful that the user can prove they are the rightful owner. Usually asking them to change the email. Usually I tend to say, hey, that's the help desk number 4582. Can you set your email in account Jenkins.io to helpdesk 4582? If they can do it, that means they have access to the account, so they are rightful owner, or they stole the password. In any case, they can. And there is nothing we can do to prevent that. Thanks, Stefan. You took care of renewing the two following credentials, Netlify and NPM token. No issue. Did the documentation of previous issue or runbook were okay, or was it a discovery for you?
Hold on. One of those two took me a while to find where to set the new token.
Mhm.
And for one of them, we need to delete the old token before creating the new one, and not for the other one. But I did, sorry, I did wrote that in the issue for
Oh,
the
cool.
next time.
Okay, so for next time we'll have the information.
Yes.
Good. There was an issue regarding release of one repository that was failing because the release was running Dockerized test on GitHub Action, which is not expected since the CD system wait for the CI build to be green before being able to release. So your Dockerized test, if any, should be on the CI part. So that was already the case, meaning the release just need to compile, do a few things, eventually a quick smoke test, but release should be release. If it's using the CD GAP 299 system, of course. If you're doing it manually, that's different process. So Olivier Lamy did disable the Docker part on the plugin, and then the release was successful. It was also a case in which the release was done partially, and that's an interesting information. Usually we have Maven generate a bunch of artifacts during the release and then deploy them directly to Artifactory. We have that rule that say we never roll back or remove a release unless it's a security and private and emergency process. So the default rule is if it fails during a release that is not completed, it's a partial release. You cannot retry the release because you cannot override the existing artifacts, even if you are missing some. So that means you need to trigger a new release in order to have the full release. That's what happened here. However, Olivier Lamy pointed a good thing, and I will need help from other people than Olivier and I. He proposed a change on the CD system for GitHub Action that use a Maven flag named -d deploy at the end. That flag in our current setup has the default Maven 2 and Maven 3 value, which is false. So it deploys on the go after each release in parallel. Deploy on the other end, it will be the default behavior with Maven 4 and the Maven deploy plugin. And it will wait for the end of the process before sending all the elements on one shot. That should prevent most of these partial release case when it fails. In that case, the test would have failed without sending anything to Artifactory. So the release would have failed, but could have been retried with no problem, because nothing would have been sent to Artifactory. That looks like a sane default, at least for the CD process for plugins, but I need other advices, and right now only Olivier and I worked on this one. So Bruno, Mark, I'm interested if you can push people to read and give advice and feedbacks on Olivier proposal on the GitHub Action workflow.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. That's very sensible, but let's ask a few more people who are much more experienced in these kind of things than I am.
In any case, that will help. If we don't have answer before end of March, I will, since it's under the Jenkins Infra umbrella, that looks good for me. And with no answer, no feedback, or no negative objection, I will merge this end of month. Artifactory content is not correct, so that has been fixed thanks to Darren work. He cleaned up some Atlassian mirror. And so suddenly people who were relying on both Maven Central and our Artifactory started to go back to Maven Central direct downloads with the latest version of plugin that weren't available yet. Also, that allowed us to pinpoint some elements that we had to delete on all data items that has been migrated directly to Maven Central. All the Kosuke frameworks, as I believe. So in that issue, Adrian pointed one of these feedbacks, and we had to delete manually things. I've moved the things in a private repo just in case. I mean, it's 12 megabyte or something like that, so it won't collide with Darren work, and everything looks good. Then Stefan, welcome as admin. Stefan is now one of the proud co-administrator of the GitHub Jenkins Infra organization.
As for now, I didn't break anything yet.
That's good.
Please be careful. We'd like that pattern to continue.
I try.
Do you know Spider-Man? With great power come great responsibility, says his uncle when dying in his arms, and that's where the sense of justice of the Spider-Man comics book hero come from. Anyway, jokes aside, we had two Windows-specific issues that in the end weren't issues and we didn't had to fix. That's good news. Anyway, however, we spent a lot of time learning, trying to debug. So first of all, if you are lucky to run Git on Windows, you might, especially if you run Jenkins agents on Windows, you might want to not upgrade Git to the 2.48 line. So stay on Git. Otherwise, Git, even though should manage with certain option enabled a long path with more than 260 characters, there is a bug introduced. 2.48.1 is buggy for long path. So yeah, we spent some time thinking we broke something with the AWS change, but since we updated the Git version 24 hours after moving to AWS, we all thought that it was something on our Windows Amazon machine, which wasn't the case. So yes, we thank Stefan for reverting back on the image that was delivered yesterday and confirm working with at least two plugins. So yeah, the good thing is that we now have set up an additional kernel parameter that was required, and that one could change on different Windows core versions. So in any case, now we have a clean setup everywhere on the infra, thanks to that issue. Big thanks to James Nord for the pairing and accepting to read C code with me yesterday. Basically. Thanks again, Stefan, Jesse, and Mark on the encoding issue.
And the
So,
specific thanks to Jean-Marc Després because he helped me a lot on that one too.
Yep. Good point.
And
So
I'm pushing him to enhance his plugin too. I had
So,
to
yes.
offer a Jenkins t-shirt for that.
That makes sense. Takeaway, there was a change when we moved from Azure to AWS because since in Amazon we are not able to provide, let's say, efficient or working as expected Windows container, we use Windows machine for agents. That implied a change from Nano Server to Windows Server Core. And Nano Server uses UTF-8 by default, while Windows Server Core stays on CP15 something. So that has unexpected breakage because we saw plugins with tests that were making implicit hypothesis that UTF-8 was the system encoding, so they could write UTF-8. So the problem is that we have to fix this test, but we are really sorry for the breakage because it was not expected to go that way, and it's making maintainer lose time, even though on the long term, that will make the test either disappear or being fixed to be really valuable. And we learned a lot around Cloud Init stuff. Yes, Stefan, the way Cloud Init and Init script work with the EC2 plugin. So since we have fixed all the Windows issue, or at least there is nothing we can do to help on this issue, that's more like this, we were able to clean up everything related to Windows Container Agent on Amazon. We don't need anymore. Hence, we closed the issue. Finally, we closed an issue related to Docker rate limits that's related to the CD process. And yep, that's all on the closed issue. We also had 3 issues that we closed as not planned. So someone wanted to create an account. They were blocked by anti-spam, and of course, like every time, it never miss. If we ask, what do you plan to do with that account? Suddenly the person disappears from the surface of Earth. So now I'm a bit more aggressive. After 24 hours, I close the issue. Of course, if the person wants to say, hey, no, I want to go to Jira, they can just comment and we create the account for them.
Well, I think that is actually a viable runbook kind of pattern that, thank you, we're happy to work on this with you. Tell us what you're going to do with it because it will grant you access to issues and to the artifact repository, but that's all it will give you access to.
Exactly.
It doesn't give you access to, oh no, and to ci.jenkins.io, but it does not give you access to your own personal Jenkins controller.
Yep. And 10 days ago, I saw one of my nephews that is starting to use, it's not ChatGPT, it's the French one, Claude. And he was using Claude and he's learning IT. And they were learning Jenkins in class. And he showed me that the question he asked for Claude about how do I set up admin account on Jenkins instance, and that somehow the answer of that LLM system was, hey, you have to create an account on account Jenkins.io. So yes, if it's Google, I know how to deal with it.
You cannot
if it's
ask
an
for the
LLM,
source of that because maybe it's written somewhere and the LLM learned it from there.
LLM are basically this kind of
I know,
LLM are basically for private company that want you to pay something and make money from it. You can try to contact the person handling Claude.
No, I would like to know where it got that.
We stop. I have too bad faith and I don't trust this system because it doesn't solve any problem. And I mean, I have no way. It's public information that say don't, and still the system say no. Let me hallucinate something, and you have no way of telling it is wrong. So, yep, no feedback mechanism, no Damien working on it. If people want to trust what the system tells them, not my problem anymore, because there is nothing we can do about that. So, yeah. Chris, while you're still there, is that okay for our friend Birukot streamer about the casino number thing for the documentation?
Yep.
Cool, because we closed the issue since we didn't have permission to do this. But I
Yeah.
tried to route, and it looks like you took over at the end. I just wanted to be sure there was nothing else we could do to help.
Took a few hops, but finally the repo has been migrated. Thank you.
Yeah, migration of repo is never easy between organization. Even whether you're a newcomer like Biru or when we do it between Jenkins here and Jenkins Infra, I remember with Jean-Marc it took us a lot of hops, and Jean-Marc known his way. So okay, so nothing else for us. There is nothing we can do, but I wanted to be sure everything was good for you.
Okay.
Thanks. And I closed the had delete account to account Jenkins.io issue in favor of the replacement of account Jenkins.io by something else. That's a major topic for us this year, because I mean, of course, that's one of the features. And since we had a wave of people who want to contribute, and I don't know how they end up on the worst and most complicated and most controversial issues, and they want to get their first contribution on these issues. And I'm like, oh no, no, I don't want to demotivate you, please. The thing is that we don't have a lot of issues marked as newcomers issue on the infra part for good and bad reasons, but that's the reason why people want to try their luck on others. And that contributor already made contribution to account Jenkins.io already. So that's not a bad thing. So thanks to them, but yeah, that issue had to be closed. Okay, now work in progress. Stefan, you first. We have new mirrors in India.
Oh, because the first one was for Mark. So, okay. Yes, new mirror in India. We managed to set up and enable 2 on 3 of them. With some hiccups, we had to try back and forth. But the last one I tried again this morning is not able to synchronize and to scan from the mirror bits pods. So I had to cancel again. So I'm waiting for some news from the user about what's in the logs in his side. But the third one is not working. But the 2 other one are up and running and should be delivering files right now.
Cool. So many thanks for
Yeah.
the help. And on my side, on this one, I still
Oh,
hope
sorry.
you a runbook issue to
Yes.
have more information extracted from my brain so that it's shared to the team.
A little add-on on that, the user discovered that the latitude, longitude, the geolocalization was wrong on the GeoIP
Yep.
database. So even with our updating way of working, it's still wrong. So he asked by himself for the update. So we are waiting for the MaxMind Geo database IP to update itself.
And technically, that should mean no action from us. As soon as the
That
database will be
should.
updated, in the week after the release, it should be updated by the work you made on GeoIP system.
Oh, it's way more than a week. It's every day.
No, the updates are done. The coordinates are updated once a week. However, the ISEN numbers are updated. They can be updated every 2 or 3 weeks, but the coordinate
Okay.
is once a week on GeoMaxMind.
Okay. So we'll see.
Cool. Thanks for this one. So it's low priority now that 2 of the mirrors have been updated, and we wait from them. Once you are out of office, Stefan, I will monitor this one.
Thank you.
Mark, your turn. We have a Jenkins Jira license to renew, right?
Yeah, so I realized that I'm usually the person who interacts with the Linux Foundation, and having only one person do things is not a good thing. So I created this placeholder to remind me that we need to be sure that several of us are all able to interact with the Linux Foundation on our Jira instance, and I don't expect any issue with this. It's not doing any harm. It just has a bit of an annoying message, but it's good that we make sure that we've got multiple people who can do these things, not just one.
Thanks. I confirm that I can still see the tickets, so we are at least 2 persons able to
Oh, you
communicate
can
with.
see the Linux Foundation ticket that I
Yes,
created?
yes, I have access to their
Oh,
system.
good. Okay, so that may mean we have 2 people instead of just one who could have done it. Good, very good. Thanks.
Okay, what are the other topics? I'm trying to classify. Stefan, you had an issue around a possible announcement on Packer
Oh, yes.
builds. What's the
Yes.
status? Should we delay? Did you do
We have to
something?
delay because I did nothing that week, but I don't think I did something that week. I'm working on multiple way of handling the builds when it's a pull request in order to have faster pull request, less cost, but specifically faster. And depending on what we are impacting, we will want the pull request to be tested on Windows or just Docker or Linux. And I try to find a smart way to find out the correct test set, and also to be able to provide a manual setting by label saying, no, I want the full one, or I want this set or this set or this set. For now, I'm just poking around.
Which remind me, we should close the issue and walk around Windows all-in-one container on Packer image.
I think you did.
Okay, I will double check, but I wasn't sure if I closed because we don't need them.
I saw something close that was very old with all the
Cool.
checkbox each time we install something.
Okay,
I
I will
think you
double check.
closed it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. On the other things we had on support, we had a request by Yuli Hafner and a discussion about adding real-world job
Yeah.
to weekly CI Jenkins IO. So the answer is nowadays, in the current shape, the answer is alas no, because the controller runs in Kubernetes. And what's the best way to have your Kubernetes controller act than having running a publicly available Jenkins controller? Clearly, that's not a good idea. Transversal attack is the best way. And the idea here is that maybe we should think about setting up a tiny virtual machine in DigitalOcean, for instance, and run weekly CI on it. So then we could have a Dumi agent on the same machine on a second controller. Worst case, the people who act the virtual machine can break the virtual machine, and that's all. It's an isolated network somewhere, doesn't cost a lot, and that would allow more autonomy for people like Uli or contributors such as Tim or Jan if they want to show off some things, or the developer evangelism team. If they want access, they can connect to the controller.
And that controller will be on a small VM and can have an agent on the VM also.
Yes,
So they can play around and show stuff. Okay, good. Perfect.
exactly. You have many technique. With directly on the VM, you run Jenkins as a one user and the agent as another user. Both are non-sudoers users, no Docker, so less risks. Or you can run inside two distinct Docker containers. That's also the same technique. If you don't run as root and drop all privileges, that works as well.
You mean like the tutorial from Bruno with the Docker Compose and
Yep,
the two?
yep,
Oh,
that's the same idea.
oh, we should
Except
do that.
you need to add restrictions because it's a publicly available controller.
Not quite. I think Bruno's is not doing Docker and Docker, right? Bruno's
No,
Yes,
no, definitely not.
no,
that's why
yeah,
it's good.
No,
no,
that's why.
right,
It's
right.
yeah.
The Jenkins Blue Ocean or the Jenkins install docs are still doing Docker and Docker, and that's
Oh,
bad. And we'd like to stop doing that. But Bruno's tutorials definitely do not do Docker and Docker.
I'm sorry. I'm just watching Bruno's tutorials.
Great.
Out of public Kubernetes AKS cluster to a tiny DO VM to allow this. Okay, what do we have? Artifactory. So despite his personal, let's say, slowdowns, Darren did a really awesome work. Thanks, Darren, for this on helping us keeping a sane relationship and sponsoring partnership with JFrog.
Oh,
He put,
and I have
yep.
proposed a talk with Melissa McCarthy for CDCon in June in
Oh,
Denver, talking about
cool.
this story and our last story with them. So Melissa and I together plan to, if the talk's accepted, We'll
That will be
talk about what it
cool.
means to do. How do we ensure that we don't suffer the tragedy of the commons?
That's really cool. Okay, so I don't have anything else to say on Artifactory. Darren is waiting from inputs, I think, at least on the incremental part. I need to double check, so I'm keeping this on the milestone.
Yeah, it should
The
stay on the milestone. Incrementals, he's still cleaning daily, um, but he's got some questions he needs to discuss with Daniel Beck.
clean daily manually by Darren
Right.
needs to automate with the team. And we
Yeah,
have
and it's when we say manually, what it really means is it's running on Darren's computer. Darren's busy elsewhere, but it's running on
yep,
Darren's computer.
to plan the G center cache removal implies backup before. As a reminder, the G center cache is 1.8 terabyte of storage. It's not available publicly as far as I remember, so it's not participating on the bandwidth. However, I might be wrong. But at least removing 1.8 terabytes mean we should be less stressed about regular incremental cleanup. That's all on Artifactory. Other questions? Nope. Okay. Still on the support part. Stefan, we have two issues on your own. Jenkins prototype deployment and scoop buckets. Can you give us a heads up?
Yes. Scoop bucket, I did this morning create a new repository for the first time because I'm owner now. I hope I did it well. I created the data they needed, and I think I saw an answer but didn't have time to watch it since the meeting, so I will have to look into that. And for the Jenkins prototype and Netlify, I'm stuck right now because the Jenkins prototype is under Jenkins CI, and as we plan to use Netlify to publish the data, we need to have a Netlify install and authenticate on netlify.com, and I don't have the rights to do that. So I pinged Tim Jacomb, who is owner on Jenkins CI, to help me on that.
We need help from Jenkins CI admin. I think there is I just remember, Stefan, worth adding a ping to @Jenkins admin or Jenkins-admin.
Oh,
We have
there
a
is an
group.
alias? Yeah,
Yes,
good.
that's a team in Jenkins Infra in which we have added individually the Jenkins CI admin we know. So not only team, but other. Because team is not answering nowadays, so either is in holidays or busy
Yeah,
or not sure.
and that's good not
So
to
yep,
depend on only one person. No single
tip, let's
sport.
ping Jenkins admin team in the issue to avoid team as a spuff if is not available. What do you think about this
I'm
one?
not sure it will like to be called sport, but okay.
Or if you call him Spuff with a beard, that will be okay. I
With
know
the beer,
Tim.
everything is good.
Next topic is the infrastat not updated. So looks like Kosuke fix is it keeps working. So now his VPN is not dying when he's not at home. We are waiting for news from Andrew. As a reminder, Andrew recently moved to New York from I think was he in Boston? Yes, he was in Boston, right? So anyway, he moved states. That's a lot of things and a lot of changes for him, and he wasn't able to help us. So and mainly was waiting for his computer taking care of the treatments to move here. Technically, if we can have time with Andrew, we should be able to re-implement his command line. He wrote things in Golang, and Tim was able to compile and fix things in a few months ago. So in theory, with the right PostgreSQL size and the right binary, we should be able to automate this on one of our controller. But that's worth a pairing session with Andrew so we can hand over that part. Because we have access to the data. The data is anonymized already by Kosuke. So the part in which Andrew is the SPOF today is just a matter of us having the right agent and the right resources. I sent him a message 3 weeks ago. He's not responsive, but yeah, clearly he's moving and it's not easy. So yeah, I guess let's before trying by ourselves. I propose we wait end of March, and I will keep trying to ping him. Is that okay for everyone? Still waiting for pairing with Andrew to hand over the task. KK's data is flowing. So sorry for everyone requiring stats Jenkins IO to be up to date, but again, that's hard to have time with our best SPOF friends. We are all SPOF somehow. Okay, right now let's move to CI Jenkins IO. That's a lot. First, bomb builds. I'm sorry for my fellow bomb releasers. So first of all, CI Jenkins IO slow response and slow loading of test results. That one clearly improved. It's not finished yet. That's the topic we started the meeting with. It's related to people trying to trigger polling randomly, or people or LLM, also non-people. We increase the size of the machine. So now when we have multiple bomb build running at the same time, the machine is not dying. So we increased the controller size. No more I/O, because we were seeing I/O weight on the CPU before with the old instance. No more I/O, more memory in the heap. Because we now have 30 gigabyte of heap. That's a lot of threads. LLM usages seems to cause most of the slow down now. We have to update with IP blockers. And then we'll see. But that one is on the verge of being solved. If you see other issue, don't hesitate to comment here with either if you see errors. But right now, in the past 3 days, each time I saw HTTP 500, 503, it's either a restart, an LLM starting to poll to emit GET request to all the polling endpoints of 100 of jobs that start to hammer the file system, or these requests trying to do random things, and at the moment on time, it exhausts the amount of threads available to Jetty, to the web server serving Jenkins. So that's why we need blockers. If we don't have any solution and this hammering continue, as a reminder, we will need to think about enabling authentication for everyone. That's something we want to avoid for a more open community. But if we have system crawling CI Jenkins IO and bypassing the blockers and keeping this, then we will need authentication so we can block users. Jesse did discover that it looks like there is something wrong in EC2 plugin. Bad config, plugin bug, we don't know. Needs to diagnose. But when we restart controller, sometimes, not always, we see agents, despite being reconnected, that lose the workspace directory. So the pipeline cannot resume on this. Jesse asked the question, is it a bad EC2 configuration? We need to check with our CloudBees friend who worked extensively with EC2 recently. Is it a bad configuration on our side? I don't know. I haven't seen any. It's weird and it's unexpected. We shouldn't lose this. The thing is it a bug in the EC2 plugin? Is it a consequence of not enough threads so the controller lose track and it's something that doesn't require solving? I don't know. Bomb. That one is fun. While working on the caching parts of the bomb, we realized that most of the issue you seem to have looks related to resource pressure on the agents. As a reminder, we spin up hundreds of agents in parallel, and we have a system that spin up virtual machine with different kinds, so we get the cheaper one, and try to spin up a container. It looks like that we have random results because the test timeouts, I haven't checked the metrics, but I have the same behavior when archiving the cache. If my cache archive that I copy out from S3 is less than 2 gigabytes, the copy varies from 3 seconds to almost 2 minutes on certain node under pressure. So that one, we can say it's S3. That might have different behavior when you request. Okay. But then with the archive locally, we do a tar uncompression. That one only relies on local resources of the machine. And the tar time results on the free last build I tried varies from 3 seconds, always the same archive, up to 13 minutes. So 13 minutes to uncompress a 1.2 tar GZ file is insane. That means the machine behind is completely out. The working theory, without any proof so far, is that Carpenter, we haven't set up Carpenter with a lot of restriction. We have restricted Linux only, Ubuntu only, we don't restrict the size of the machine. So we see distinct size. So sometimes we have up to 30 to 40 pods agent on the same machine, while sometimes we only have 1 to 3. So the working theory is maybe we should add a restriction and try to say, let's say 5 agents per machine, for instance, and see if it has a result on the timeouts. Maybe it's something else. But right now we are studying the metrics and it's hard to observe, especially since, to be quite honest, the PCT system is a black box. That's absolutely insane in terms of observability because it runs Maven command, yes. But sometimes this Maven command downloads 2 to 3 gigabytes of data and then start hundreds of process and never kill this process, thanks for Surefire system. So yeah, we have many moving pieces here. I don't even want to talk about Blue Ocean tests, which are compiling SAS with an old C++ version and a Node.js version 10. I don't even know to look at the release date of Node.js 10. I'm sure Jay was still learning to walk when Node.js 10 was here.
You was not born.
Not that much, but there was JavaScript on server side before Jay's was born. That's for sure. The
Agreed.
people who knew Netscape server know
Yeah,
what I'm
agreed,
talking about.
yes.
Clearly, Jay wasn't born, but yeah. Anyway.
Jay, I think you should call them out for ageism. What's
Yes.
happening here is this is ageism. I recognize ageism. It just happens to be inverted from the usual ageism applied to certain of us.
That's
Fair.
okay. In a few years, I will have knowledge about all the futuristic technologies, and
Good.
I pull
Yeah,
in
that's
an
a
Uno reverse.
good response. Counter ageism is the best response. So right now, the caching system shows that if the archive is below 5 gigabytes, it's fine to use Amazon S3 and the S3 driver we use that mounts the buckets as if it was a file system. If we pass the threshold of 5 gigabytes, then performance just drop on S3 side. So if we can keep a consistent cache with less than 5 gigabytes per file, that's okay. We haven't explored yet using rsync to copy and retrieve files. I have a strong gut feeling that it won't be as much performant as a simple tar archive. However, depending on how the caching situation is going, we could have to split the cache with a common cache tar that we reuse everywhere and one PCT stage tar file. Right now, it looks like the cache filling that we did with Adrien is missing dependencies because my last build failed due to ACP request in error. We were trying the BOM weekly line, and one of the PCT downloads the WAR file for the latest LTS Jenkins version, which is not something I would have expected during a test phase with weekly, but yeah, anyway, which means we are not able to have enough cache. So we need to increase the cache area. And if it's too big, we will have to split per PCT test. There are other working technique here. The two last resort will be setting ACP to only one replica and see the impact. We never tried this with a full bomb build, because maybe it's the spread of the cache that increased the chance of having a failed request. And go on the direction of trying retries to Artifactory if we cannot work out. But clearly, I still have doubts that caching files on the agent is worth the effort on something like the bomb. Yes, because it doesn't. I haven't seen any positive effect yet. Because the time spent by the build on retrieving concurrently the caches is not worth the amount of time that it avoid to sending ACP requests.
I have a
That's why.
silly question, and,
Mhm.
and I'm not lucky because it's recorded, but I will go for it too. Why don't we provide a pod image specifically for those pods for bomb builds directly with the .m2 populated with the cache?
Because you need, so that adds startup time first, because not only you need to pull a bigger image, which already take 2 to 3 minutes on each machine, and you can see the impact.
Yeah, but you
When
don't have to download the tar and extract it. It's
yes,
in the image.
uh, yes, and the second problem is by default you shouldn't do any I/O on a container file system. That means you need an initial copy of from the container file system sequential copy to the local disk in which you can do IOs, mtdir in the case of Kubernetes, or data volume if you use Docker.
Okay, so when we do the download and the enter, it's on the local mtdir, not
Exactly,
when we get the file because it's layers in the images.
exactly. Which means if you provide a compressed archive on the image, so you have a faster sequential read at the beginning of the pod startup, you are back to the situation in which you need tar. And so we need to solve the resource problem before evaluating. But I
Yes, we
don't
will
say it's a
still
bad
have to
idea.
enter it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you still have the tar part. But there, we also have a solution that we discover while trying to make Windows Container work. We could customize our node image. You know, currently it's Amazon Linux. Each
Yeah.
Kubernetes node on EKS has a teeny Amazon Linux, which goal is to start as soon as possible, spin up a kubelet process that connect to Kubernetes and start launching pods. We can customize these images, either with Packer
Let's
or
do
an
that.
internal tool named Amazon Image Builder. So if once a week we say, get the latest version for that cluster,
Yeah.
because we update it at least once a week. So we get the latest one, we start an image on it, whether with Packer or the other. We pull in advance the currently used container image for agents, and we run a pre-caching on the machine, and we export that. Then we keep the same idea as what you have, Stefan, except the delay phase will be at the VM boot instead of each agent boot. So the scope of the cache will be spread across, let's say we said 5 agents, you will pay the penalty once for 5 agents instead
Yeah.
of paying it for each container.
In
So that
fact,
could be an idea.
you move the cache from the pods to the nodes under the pod, and then the pod will just populate it. Good.
Exactly. So
Really
caching
good.
part, I need to work with Adrian to see if we have an easy way to retrieve the cache with only the code sample. Right now, it's missing some test dependency as we saw, so it's defeating the goal to protect ACP from dying or the bomb builds to fail. We might be able to do other things. I hope we won't have to contribute to PCT because PCT now requires running all the tests. So that means we will need to add a feature on PCT to say, hey, please prepare everything, resolve dependencies, and stop right there. We need that for an optimized cache filling. Otherwise, that means you need to run bomb tests in order to fill the cache, which is insane.
So there is a tweak already that lets you set to only run one test, injected
Oh,
test, and that one
oh,
test
could be echo okay.
is relatively light, right? But it does exercise all the test dependencies. It's the one I've been using to populate my caches locally.
Oh, can you share the technique in the issue, please, Mark?
I can. I'm not sure it works entirely. So, but in my case, I'll happily share it. It seems to work for me
Yes.
as far as I can tell in terms of populating my
Can you
caches
share
locally.
it? It's
I
worth
will.
trying to generate an archive and see with the size of the archive and then retry on a custom build.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
it's a die and retry thing, but we need, I mean, if it covers at least 80% of the dependencies of each PCT, that's worth the effort.
Right. So I'll certainly share it with you.
And so we have that performance problem that we need to investigate in order to help you folks release the bomb builds, because with or without cache, you still have timeout issues.
And the performance issue is the most interesting anyway, right? So
Yep.
thank you very much. You've confirmed there is a performance issue, and you confirmed it in a way that is independent of bomb effectively by saying, hey,
Exactly.
trying to unpack one tar file should not take wildly different amounts of time.
Exactly. So that's why the performance issue is now the top priority and the caching is a background task.
And I will
Yep,
push for us to find a solution that is not dependent on AWS, because if we migrate back to Azure, it would be great to keep the interest of
yeah,
that solution.
and right now that's why I stick to a CSI driver. The constraint is run it on Kubernetes. And the first step is do a copy from a moon point. So you delegate to the Kubernetes admin whatever driver they need. Every Kubernetes cluster we have run in the past or we run today have a read-only many persistent volume system available, which has really good performance if you copy one or two archive. Azure File on Azure, DigitalOcean Spaces, Amazon S3, and OVH has their own. So
Okay.
that means for the future we can go back. We just have to change the PVC implementation.
Yes.
But really good points. We need this to be sustainable. Something else on CI Jenkins IO. So I moved the instability of artifact caching proxy on background because we need caching in order to fix the ACP issue. Or we need to say caching is not a solution and we need to work on artifact on the ACP system. That one is in pause. We need performance, then caching, and then we restate the problem. We had the issues around Docker builds on the virtual machine agent, whether Windows and or Linux. Current one, SSH agents. It's not only SSH agents. But not Docker, because we don't run the same kind of tests. Only on Windows tests. We don't see correlation. All Windows versions are having the same issue. There is a certain instruction we run on the test, and we cannot identify which one, that start to be stuck. On the case of Docker inbound agent, Hervé is working. Looks like there is, it sounds like we have interactive process, and since a recent change, I don't know which one, back to AWS, Docker CE28, something else, I don't know. But there has been a change in the past 4 weeks that makes the tester framework, which is a PowerShell testing framework, being stuck on some of the things we are doing. Right now, we are investigating if we can identify which one. If we don't come with a solution, that means we might want to try, let's say, a Jumi test with just Docker Compose or Docker Shell and whatever, or move to Gus. But Gus, our experience with Gus is not good enough for justifying getting away from Pester. But yeah, there is something on that area that Hervé and I don't understand. These create timeouts. Second note, it does not happen during image releases because we don't run tests. That's why. Worth testing the test on trusted CI in Azure and see if we have the same thing. If we can see a difference between Azure and AWS, since we use the same tooling on both, that means it's the base image provided by Azure and AWS that has a different behavior. eventually the fast launch system on Amazon that do something. But we don't know. Right now, we don't know, and we still need analysis. If we need urgent updates of Docker SSH agent or Docker agent or inbound agent, let's disable the test, merge the dependency changes, release, and then re-enable the test like we did on SSH agent. If it's emergency, of course. That's all on the work in progress. We have new issue related to Docker. I will come to them. And the last 3 issues, no, sorry, we have 2 support issues that have been delayed. And Jay, it's your turn finally. Can you tell us the status of the update CLI thing?
Yeah, so basically there were 2 tasks to be done with this issue. So the tasks that I was working on currently would implement the execution of a custom version of update CLI. So today I come bearing good news that we tested for the non-regression branch with the basic behavior when the user does not want a custom update CLI version, which worked. And also it worked in the case where a user did specify a custom version in the update command. So there's a bunch of refactoring that has to be done and tests that have to be modified. But yeah, you're in a good space right now. So the next set of tasks which I've started working on from today would be uh, would be the execution of update CLI, the update CLI script on an existing node. So right now it spins up a new agent whenever it executes the update CLI function. And suppose we want to run it on a node that's already existing. Yeah, that works in progress, right? Damien, did I mess up?
No, that's perfect. Do you have questions, people? Is it clear? Good. So thanks. That will help us a lot to manage the platform, and that will help you to be able to manage the pipeline library with us in the future.
Yeah.
Finally, on CI Jenkins IO, Stefan worked and prepared the work for cleaning up the old resources on Azure. It's almost finished. And I have 2 top-level delayed issues. One is a delayed cleanup around update Jenkins IO. Right now we are overwhelmed, so that one is delayed. And the top-level topic for account app is we won't be able to start before April. I haven't had news from Philip Glantz, which means we are back to square zero before FOSDEM. We need to decide which technique to use, Keycloak, Go Authentic, or something else. News from Philip. Now on the new issues, I've opened 2 issues related to CI Jenkins IO. First one is that so they will be added to the milestone. We saw with Stefan and Hervé and Mark and other, we had random issues regularly and changing. When Docker is pulling an image, we saw unexpected end of file. So I've put the message error here. We diagnosed that with Stefan earlier today, that it was the registry that we use as a mirror to avoid rate limit on Docker Hub. And sometimes it has corrupted layers on its file system, which ends on serving without error an empty layer. So it's not an error on server side or on the log, so it's hard to track. But client side say, hey, I'm expecting, you tell me it's 30 megabyte, and in fact it's 0. That's unexpected. It's random and it changes. It's not always the same layer. We saw different images or different layers on a given images between 2 failures that are not the same. Sometimes it's empty, sometimes it's not. So we did a radical change for now. We removed everything from the registry, restarted it, and the last build worked with no problem. And by checking the detailed configuration of the registry, it looks like there is a TTL on the layers when it acts as a proxy like today. So we might probably will try for 1 or 2 weeks with the TTL at 0, meaning you don't expire any layer at all. You keep the layer once you have it. You don't try to re-download. Less request to the Docker Hub, more consistency. And then we will deal with the file system filling by once a month. We clean everything up and everything up and start from scratch. That would map to the behavior of sometimes a layer works, sometimes it doesn't. Because if the system has a bug, is overwhelmed, whatever reason, after 7 days, it expired the layer, remove them and try to re-download them lazily. If that download doesn't work for whatever reason, then it corrupts, and that's why it keeps changing. Stefan, so you are off for the upcoming 3-day. Do you think between today and Monday you will be able to start the preliminary work to prepare a Kubernetes 1.31, meaning updating kubectl and starting the changelog and planning?
The kubectl, yes. The changelog I can start, but I will be far to finish.
Yep, absolutely. It's starting. Kubectl is the easy one.
Yeah.
Let's start with
I would have
kubectl.
asked Jay to deal with the. Oh, he's not there? Oh, yeah. I would have asked Jay to deal with the kubectl. Now he knows. Or at
Okay.
least he should know.
Yeah.
And then you
I
call me if you
totally-
don't know.
Yeah.
Everything should be in
That's
the
okay.
issue.
I will drive the kubectl thing with Jay since you are off, and Jay and I will meet tomorrow because I know it's easy, so it shouldn't derail Jay too much from child library. And you
And it's a
start on
dead CLI,
the
so he
yep,
knows.
and you start on changelog. Is that okay if we
Good.
split that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. The two next issues stays on the backlog. WinP is the same. That's weird. I don't see. So there should be another issue related to CI Jenkins IO. Sometimes we have a rate limit because we realize that buildix, when we use the Docker dash container driver instead of the default Docker driver, doesn't reuse the settings from Docker engine. These settings is where we had the mirror registry, the one that serves corrupted data. So instead of using corrupted layers for buildix builds, we doesn't have any layer at all because we hit the rate limit on Docker Hub. Choose your poison. So on an original idea of Stefan, we are providing the TOML file that can be used to configure buildix, and Hervé is okay to provide this pull request as a Docker image maintainer. A pull request that will say, if you are on CI Jenkins IO or whatever CI Jenkins IO and you have the TOML file, use it. On our side, we already have the file written on both Azure and AWS with the right directive. That should avoid. That's not a blocker, that's not a priority topic because the rate limit doesn't happen often. Hervé never saw it, and Hervé has eagle eyes. I saw it twice or third. And since Docker increased the threshold for the rate limit, we most probably don't see it often. But I mean, that's worth finishing the work here. So new issue. And yeah, and I think that's already a lot of work and we spend a lot of time. So for me, that's all. Are there other topics you want to bring? Things you want to say? Okay, so thanks for your patience. That was a rather long meeting this week. I will try to do better next week. Yes, we have a lot of things running. For people watching us on the recording, see you next week. Stefan,
Bye-bye.
enjoy your 3 days. And for everyone, have a nice
you.
end of day or good night.
Thank
Stopping
you.
stopping screen share and stopping recording. Bye-bye.